On a fateful Thursday, April 14th of 1881, a mere 3 days into his new role as town marshal, Dallas Stoudenmire found himself catapulted into the annals of Old West history. The infamous 4 Dead and 5 Seconds Gunfight would etch its name into the minds of people across the country, from the bustling streets of San Francisco to the towering buildings of New York City. News of the confrontation spread like wildfire through the pages of the newspapers, captivating by tales of lawlessness and vengeance. The saga unfolded a mile south of El Paso, Texas, where the mighty Rio Grande cut a winding path marking the divide between the United States and Mexico. The air cracked with tension as a thundering herd of roughly 75 Mexican cowboys, armed to the teeth, thundered into the town. Their mission was very clear: to locate 2 missing compatriots, 2 men named Sanchez and Juarez. Stolen cattle had crossed the river into the hands of ruthless thieves. Hired by a wealthy Mexican landowner, this armed posse was determined to reclaim what was rightfully theirs. El Paso County Constable Gus Crimcaw, fluent in Spanish, was sought out to aid in the search. Driven by a sense of duty, Crimcaw agreed to lead the posse, venturing into the unknown. Their quest led them to the doorstep of a man named Johnny Hale, a ranch owner whose shadowy reputation as a cattle rustler whispered through the winds. The discovery of the lifeless bodies of 2 missing Mexicans near Hale's ranch sent shockwaves through the community, igniting a furious blaze of resentment and a thirst for justice. El Paso stood on the precipice, its streets teeming with a swelling crowd that included Johnny Hale, the accused cattle rustler, and his comrade, former town marshal, a man named George Campbell. Animosity and unease permeated the air as the American watched warily, fearing the explosive combination of armed Mexicans consumed by grief and anger demanded justice within the confines of their city. The stage was set for inquest, held in the solemn halls of justice. Constable Crimcaw, his voice a bridge between languages and cultures, stood as the interpreter, his role crucial in the quest for truth. The verdict reverberated through the chamber. The young Mexican cowboys, Sanchez and Juarez, had been innocent victims drawn into treacherous web of stolen cattle. Their killers, the American cattle rustlers Paveller and Stevenson, had boasted callously about their deeds, their words damning them in the eyes of justice. Formal charges were swiftly laid upon the accused, and they were taken into custody, awaiting their day in court. The tensions eased as the crowd dispersed, their thirst for retribution momentarily satiated. The armed Mexicans, their grief palpable, embarked on a sorrowful journey back to their homeland, carrying the lifeless bodies of their fallen comrades, ready to offer them a final resting place. But this tale does not end here. One of the most famous gunslingers of the Wild West, Marshal Dallas Stoudenmire, was in the courtroom that day. He was actually appointed as town marshal 3 days earlier before this trial began, and he was the one thrown into the mix of this. With the court adjourned, Stoudenmire's thoughts turned to dinner, and he made his way across the street to a place called the Globe Restaurant, seeking a moment of respite amidst the chaos of the day, but fate had other plans in store for Dallas Stoudenmire. In a nearby saloon, Constable Crimcaw went in search of his rifle and pistol, unaware that a storm was brewing within the dimly lit confines of the establishment. A confrontation erupted between Crimcaw and George Campbell, ignited by remarks that Campbell was alleged to have made about Crimcaw's translations and his supposed friendship with the Mexicans. Remember, Crimcaw was leading the search, he was the translator, and now Americans are being arrested because of this, and people were mad about it. As tensions reached its peak, John Hale, heavily intoxicated and seething with anger over Crimcaw's involvement in the matter, seized the opportunity to make his mark. In a sudden chaotic burst movement, he grabbed one of Campbell's pistols and bellowed, "George, I've got you covered." The gunshots echoed through the saloon, and Crimcaw reeled backwards, seeking support against a nearby saloon door. His hand instinctively reached for his own pistol, ready to defend himself. The thunderous sound of gunshots reached Marshal Dallas Stoudenmire's ears, jolting him from his diner chair. Without hesitation, He leaped into action, pulling his own pistols out as he sprinted into the streets, his heart pounding with adrenaline. But in a frenzy of movement, chaos reigned, and the line between friend and foe was blurred. Wildly firing his dual .44 caliber Smith & Wessons, Stoudenmire's bullets found an unintended target, striking an innocent Mexican bystander who was running for cover. The tragic scene unfolded in a mere seconds as John Hale sought refuge behind an adobe pillar, peering out cautiously. But Stoudenmire's focus was unyielding, and with deadly precision he took aim at Hale. A single shot pierced the air, finding its mark between Hale's eyes, ending his life instantly. The streets were stained with the blood of those whose path had crossed on this fateful day. Meanwhile, Campbell emerged from cover, pistol drawn, but seeing the lifeless body of Hale laying on the ground, he shouted at Stoudenmire that this was not his fight. Yet, amidst the chaos, Krimkaw, grappling with like a mix of pain and confusion, mistakenly believed that Campbell was responsible for his own wounds, and without hesitation he fired at Campbell and shot him with pretty devastating accuracy. The first bullet shattered Campbell's gun and broke his right wrist, causing him to drop his weapon. But in a bid of survival, Campbell scooped up his fallen pistol with his left hand, with his body pretty much racked in pain. Stoudenmire, now not tangled up with the deadly dance with Hale, whirled backwards towards Campbell and unleashed another shot, hitting him in the foot. The agony was unbearable, and Campbell clutched his stomach, collapsing to the ground. With chilling composure, Stoudenmire walked slowly towards Campbell, his eyes locked on his fallen adversary. In the midst of the agony, Campbell's voice erupted with fury, accusing Stoudenmire of murder. But the marshal remained silent, and his resolve was unwavering. In the matter of just a few seconds, 4 men lay dead or dying. Their lives are intertwined in violence and vengeance. The streets were stained with the consequences of their action, and a silence fell over the scene. 3 Texas Rangers stood nearby, witnessing the carnage, but kind of remained aloof, convinced that Stoudenmire had the situation well under hand. He was the deputy marshal of El Paso. The echoes of the gunfight would resonate through the town for years to come, forever altering the course of history in El Paso. In the aftermath of the deadly counter, Stoudenmire's legend would grow, shrouded in both awe and fear, as the cost of justice and revenge played out in the untamed landscape of the Old West. The story kind of keeps going, even though the 4 Dead in 5 Seconds is the main topic of this video, but I want to give y'all some background or some continued story, because the story it keeps going, unfortunately for all parties involved. So 3 days after the gunfight that left 4 men dead in a blink of an eye, a web of vendettas began to spin. James Manning, fueled by deep hatred and burning desire for revenge, sought to settle the score. He approached former Deputy Marshal Bill Johnson, a man seething with rage from public humiliation and with a twisted plan in mind: convince him to assassinate Dallas Stoudenmire. The night was heavy with darkness as Johnson, the former deputy, lawman of the Wild West, drowned in alcohol, concealing himself behind a massive pillar of bricks, clutching a loaded double-barrel shotgun. The voices of Dallas Stoudenmire and his brother-in-law, Stanley Doc Cummings, reached his ears, and his hands trembled with fear and fury. In a tragic twist of fate, Johnson, drunk-ass Johnson, lost his balance and fell backwards, accidentally firing both barrels into the air. Swift as lightning, Dallas Stoudenmire responded, unleashing a barrage of bullets that severed Johnson's testicles. The retribution was swift, and Johnson's life slipped away in a matter of minutes. Thus began a feud that would haunt El Paso for days to come. Stoudenmire, newly minted as the town marshal, found himself entangled in deadly encounters. 4 men lay dead. 1 life ended unintentionally in the span of 6 days since he assumed his role. Remember, 6 days since he assumed his role as Deputy Marshal of El Paso. Yet amidst the violence, the city's crime rate plummeted, and Stoudenmire's reputation as a lawman and skilled gunman soared to greater heights. This feud was far from over. and the Mannings, careful to avoid confronting Stoudenmire alone, remained a constant threat. The Marshal actually taunted them, daring them to face him in the streets, but they knew all too well the danger of a duel with such a formidable gunslinger. On a day marked by supposed reconciliation, a peace treaty turned deadly in a local saloon. Words flew like bullets, and in the heat of a moment, shots were fired. Stoudenmire's friend tried to intervene, but the balance was upset, and Doc Manning's bullet struck Stoudenmire's left arm. The Marshal fell, barely protected by paper folding in his shirt, as James Manning delivered the fatal blow. As the dust settled and the echoes of the gunfire subsided, Dallas Stoudenmire, the once legendary gunfighter, lay lifeless on the ground. A frenzied scene unfolded, with Doc Manning unleashing his rage onto the fallen man's lifeless body. The feud had claimed another life, leaving behind a trail of vengeance and sorrow. The mournful toll of funeral bells resonated through El Paso as Stoudenmire's life was honored in a solemn ceremony. His wife, Isabella, paid her final respects before the body was sent to rest at Allington Cemetery, far from the volatile town where the legend was born. But even in death, Stoudenmire's presence lingered, haunting the streets that once feared him. The Manning brothers faced trial for his murder, but the jury, filled with their own friends, acquitted them, allowing them to continue to live their lives in El Paso, seemingly unaffected by the echoes of gunshots from days gone by. As the time passed, the killing of Dallas Stoudenmire became a distant memory, overshadowed by new disturbances and fresh tragedies. The once feared Marshal, a man of legend and fear, had found his final resting place, leaving behind a legacy that would forever intertwine with the turbulent history of our beloved Wild West.